Here we are again, and I'd now like to talk a little bit about a subject that's very dear to my heart. As I'm talking to you now, I'm sitting here in the Royal Air Force Club in Piccadilly, London. A very famous club, and a club that I've been a member of for 56 years. And I'd just like to relate a little bit of the history of the club. And it goes right back to 1918. The Royal Air Force was formed in 1918 on the 1st of April that year. And it was formed from the Royal Flying Corps, which was Army, and the Royal Naval Air Service, Navy. Two came together, formed the Royal Air Force. And a well-known man at the time, Lord Cowdray, he came to the new RAF authorities and said, I would like to help the RAF procure a club. And he gave, I forget what it was, £250,000, I think it was at the time, to find a club that the RAF could then call the RAF Club. And in due course, very quickly in fact, this place where I'm sitting now was found. At the time, it was the home of three different organisations. There was the Ladies' Lyceum Club here. There was a tavern here known as the Running Horse Tavern, and there were also stables here. So the premises were procured. Then he donated another £450,000 and said, right, now here's the money to help you convert it to a club. And the conversion started. And the club, so the procurement of the club happened in 1918, shortly after the RAF was formed. And it was formally opened, I think it was in March 1922. It was opened by the then Duke of York, who became King George VI a little later on. And it's been here ever since. In fact, the club is now, 103 years old. We had a very fine centenary just a few years ago. So that is how the club came into being. It's now one of the finest clubs in London. It's a thriving club. It is an officers' club, and we have had criticism in the past sometimes about sort of why it's an officers' club. It's what it was procured for, and the Constitution, and basically it stayed much the same. The membership has changed a little bit. The number of members the club has is quite large. It's in the order, it's in the mid-20,000s, and it's made up of full members are serving officers and retired officers, and then there are a number of it's only the full members who have full voting rights, but other members have exactly the same membership rights apart from the vote, and other membership categories are affiliated membership, basically people who've had a connection with the RAF in some form or other. And we've got a very wide range of people from industry, from all over, who from the airlines. For example, British Airways for many years used to help the RAF man the route from Rise Norton in Oxfordshire down to the Falkland Islands. So anybody who was involved with transporting RAF people down to any pilots who were involved with that are eligible, and a number of them are members here. That's just one small example of an affiliate member. Somebody who've got some sort of charitable connection. Then there's associate membership, and there are about 8,000 of those. So you can see how the numbers build up fairly rapidly. As the associate members are actually spouses of members. And then on top of that we have a few additional categories related to the Royal Aeronautical Society, or the Honourable Company of Air Pilots, and also any winged brethren, any officer aircrew who've been in the Army or the Navy and are entitled to membership here, and a number of them have taken up membership. Room-wise, there are now 110 bedrooms on the site, and that normally surprises people when they hear how many bedrooms there are. Until just a few years ago, there were 92. And we did find that the popularity of the club and the occupancy rates of the bedrooms was so high that we realised we needed to do something. We needed more bedrooms, basically. So we hummed and hawed for years about what to do, whether to buy a new premise and add it on, or whether to convert. We had 2 squash courts here, for example, which is what we did in the end. We knocked down the squash courts because they weren't used very much, unfortunately. And as an ex-president of RAF Squash, I was for life being a squash player until my knees went. So we knocked those down and we built a new wing of an extra 17 or 17 bedrooms. And that's why we have 110 now, to 18 bedrooms. We've got 110 now anyway. And that bedroom occupancy has been most of the time very high. And now that we are hopefully coming through the pandemic, I'm pleased to report that sort of the bedroom occupancy is going up again. Obviously the last 2 years has been just a very strange time for all of us throughout the world, quite frankly, as we've been dealing with a pandemic, and the club here has suffered as much as anybody because we haven't been able to use it. Although it's been open throughout, and very often it's been helping people who've been tied up with the emergency services or the National Health Service. It's been doing a good job by staying open and helping when most places have closed down. But unfortunately, we built the new premise, the new bedroom wing here, just before the pandemic came, and for the very first time for many years, we had to take out a loan to help us do it, and so we had some debt. So the timing was not perfect, but who was to predict that a pandemic was going to come along? But I can report that sort of through the generosity of members, the helpfulness of members, and now the picking up of the club again, it is recovering, and there's no doubt about it that we'll pull through the sort of current woes, and the club will return fully to exactly what it has been in the past. Bedrooms are the main source of revenue for the club. The second source of revenue is conference and banqueting, and we are very lucky to have some excellent sort of banqueting rooms. Actually, where I'm sitting now in the library is the library, but occasionally it is allowed to be used for the odd lunch or dinner, and it is an absolutely sort of charming venue for such an event. But we've got, we've got a total of 7 or 8 banqueting rooms. The largest is the room called the Sovereign's Room, where we can sit down anything up to, I think it's 134. And conference and banqueting is very popular indeed, and that is our second source of revenue. And our third source of revenue are the subscriptions. And we do keep our subscriptions low here. Actually, in actual fact, the subscription rates for the RAF Club are the second lowest of all the clubs in London. The only club that's got a lower subscription rate is the Victory Services Club, not very far from here. But, and I know Clubland because for 10 years, until not too long ago, I was the vice chairman of the club here, which is actually probably why I'm speaking to you now, because I actually do know the club and how it works very well indeed. And for example, if I give you the future, one of my responsibilities as vice chairman was predicting the future, and every year we would look at our long-range forecasts, looking at the club as a viable proposition for the next 20 years. And as long as I was vice chairman, every year I looked at it, and we looked at it, and quite frankly, our prediction was it was going to be very viable and affordable for the next 20 years. I'm not saying that we're not going to hit hiccups sometimes. Of course we will. We've just hit one, the pandemic, but and there will be sort of ups and downs in the future. For example, we do expect the club membership to go down in the coming years, because many years ago the RAF, for example, was a much bigger organisation than it is now. When I joined the RAF in 1965, I think the size of the Air Force was 140,000. The size of the RAF now is 31,000. That's a big change. So there's a bow wave of people who were members in the period when we had a big Royal Air Force. And none of us are getting any younger now, and so that bow wave is going to disappear in the coming years, and we do predict that the number of members is going to reduce. However, our long-term forecasts have taken all that into account, and we still see a very, very viable proposition for the future. We also, remember, we're low subscription. There's many, we looked at it, and if we ever had to sort of tweak things, there are many tweaks we can do to try and overcome problems that might come our way. So I think we're in a very, very fortunate position here. Now, I want to say a couple of other things. Unique selling points, USPs. This club has a number of unique selling points. The first is the art collection we've got in the club. Anybody who comes into the club will immediately recognise that they're in a place that's got a very good collection of aviation art. It is unique, and it's quite valuable too. That's the first unique selling point. The second unique selling point, we have a unique collection of squadron badges. Every squadron has a badge, and we have a unique collection here. There's no place in the world that's got a collection of badges like ours, and every badge that we've got was one that has come out of the College of Art. It's not a reproduction or anything like that. It's come from the College of Art. It's a very unique collection. And the third unique selling point, probably the most popular unique selling point, is down in the basement of the club here, we have a tavern. Remember I said at the start that located on the site was the Running Horse Tavern? Well, we have a tavern down in the basement, and what's it called? It's called the Running Horse Tavern. And believe me, it's a very popular place amongst the membership, and it's a very relaxed place, a very informal place, and it's a very thirsty place as well. So it's a marvellous club, and to walk in it, you feel you're in history. You just have to look at everywhere you go in the club, you see history. Where I'm in the library here, we've got a huge collection of books. They are all aviation books, and we do have some very sort of kind benefactors who've helped us build up this collection, for example. And until 2002, we really didn't have a library in this club. So this club has been built up this library's been built up really in the last 20 years. Over the years, I won't say the club hasn't had problems, it has. Certainly, there have been times when the future of the club was in danger, in doubt. And there were times when decisions had to be made of what to do. When I joined the Air Force, one of those such decisions had just been made. The club was running into financial trouble, and they had what they called the Colonel's Revolt. And anyway, suffice to say that sort of a team was put together. They were all very distinguished men who went on to have fine careers in the Air Force, and they really decided what needed to be done. And what was done was that every officer in the RAF had to pay half a day's pay per year to be a member of the club. And that's what happened. And overnight, that increased the membership vastly, and really sort of put the club back on sort of the path to what it is today, which is a very popular, a beautiful, and an improving club all the time. We have a room upstairs called the Hodges Room, because it was Air Chief Marshal, later Air Chief Marshal Sir Lewis Hodges, who was one of the people very much involved in that decision. And around the club, you'll see people. So Sir Lewis Hodges, you'll see sort of paintings of presidents, people who've had connection with the Air Force, with the club, the Air Force. For example, right next door we have a Churchill bar, and to see sort of portraits of Winston Churchill and Lord Trenchard, and in the club elsewhere, Jan Smuts, people who had an important part to play in the formation of the Royal Air Force, and not to mention other things like the Battle of Britain. It's just full of history, and we've got a perfect setting in London. We're not too far from the Hard Rock Cafe, not too far from Green Park, Marble Arch, Piccadilly. It really is a magical club in a magical setting. We also have another club next door. We've got the Cavalry and Guards Club, so we're very close to our senior cousins in the military, the army. Yeah, I think that's about all I can talk about at the RAF Club at this point. It's a very fine institution.